How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully everybody can hear me loud and clear. Ricky Shabazz, Navionics. We're going to get started in about 5 or so minutes. There should be a chat function on your screen that you can start writing questions. If you all can hear me, if somebody would go into the chat and just respond that you all can hear me well, definitely appreciate that. Great, great. People can hear me. Also, question, want to make sure that everybody can see the PowerPoint. So on your screen should be the PowerPoint. We're primarily going to be doing a PowerPoint today, showing some pictures, and certainly people will be able to ask as many questions. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. If you can see the PowerPoint, if you all could respond, definitely would appreciate that. Again, we'll get started in a little bit. Again, thank you all for attending the webinar while we're waiting for some folks to get online. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I'm a marine specialist for Navionics. So we're going to be talking about custom rig bass boats today. Put a lot into rigging a bass boat. I'm going to talk a lot about equipment, probably more than rigging. But those two things go hand in hand, and we'll get started here in just a moment. Certainly, if you all have questions, you can use the chat function. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and then I'll give my email address for those of you who don't get your questions answered, or if you have specific questions. This is all about educating you all and getting to as many questions as we can. Again, we get started in about 5 minutes after, about a minute. Again, thank you all for attending the webinar here. We got a lot of great webinars coming through Navionics, a wide variety of topics, swim bait fishing. I did one on drop shot fishing. Me and my colleagues are really seeking to educate the public and help you all catch more fish. And so this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available to watch again on navionics.com. We'll go ahead and dive into this subject, which is a subject I'm very excited to talk about. Certainly as a bass fisherman, or really as a fisherman, some of the concepts I'm going to talk about, really, I'm going to talk from a perspective of bass fishing, but got a bunch of buddies that walleye fish, crappie fish, and they put a lot of energy into rigging their boats, and the technology that are in these boats are amazing. A little bit about me. I am coming to you from sunny California. It's 80 degrees. Looking to go out to Lake Havasu this weekend and get into some smallmouth fishing. I'm a West Coast tournament angler and an outdoor writer. I blog on Bass, Boat Central, write for Western Bass and several other magazines and websites. My home lake is Diamond Valley. However, my favorite lakes are the California Delta and Clear Lake. I fish on the FLW Costa, Wild West Bass. Matter of fact, we have a Wild West Bass tournament this weekend at Lake Havasu, where I'll be heading on Friday. One Bass and several other team circuits. Again, where I write. I'm a seminar speaker, do seminars all over the country. I live about 10 minutes away from the Bass Pro Shops in Rancho Cucamonga, and you can catch me there many weekends when I'm not fishing. I do have a day job. I'm a vice president of a community college. Love my day job. Fishing is my passion. My work's my passion. You can see some of my sponsors. Certainly, I'm going to be talking about Ranger Boats and Anglers Marine, but the concepts I'm going to be talking about can apply. There are a lot of great bass boats out there. Now's a good time to be a fisherman, because there's a lot of great products out there. Certainly I run a Ranger, but I have friends that run other models of boats, and I just love being around boats. Matter of fact, I'll be at the Fred Hall show in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be walking around looking at all the boats. I love being around boats, been around boats my entire life. My grandfather got me into fishing, and we had an old bumper style bass boat. Then he bought a Nitro, and I've been running a Ranger for the last 15 years. I run a Ranger Z521C with a 250 Mercury, 2 Lowrance HDS, and we're going to dive into the equipment that I use and the way I rig my boats is really what we're going to be talking about today, and get to your questions. Again, if I don't get to your question or you have questions after today, my email's there. It's rshabazz@navionics.com. We'll have that email up at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. You can visit my website, www.teamblinkfishing.com, me and my team partner, Tony Lane. And you can also follow me on Facebook and all the other social media platforms, Instagram, that sort of thing. Again, this is about education, and we put a lot into these boats. And a lot of people always have questions when they see my boat in terms of how it's rigged. I've actually written an article about rigging bass boats on westernbass.com, so you can also read that and get more information. Again, thank you for taking time to join the webinar. It's going to be about 20 minutes of a presentation, and then I'm going to answer questions for about another 20 minutes. The webinar will be recorded and available on navionics.com in a couple days. Everyone is muted. You should be able to see a prompt on your screen to ask a question. That'll be using the chat function. I'm going to answer questions using chat, and I'll take questions at the end of the presentation. Again, the topics today is I'm going to go over my boat, the equipment, the rigging, and then we're going to jump into some questions. So again, I run a Z521 single console. I personally prefer a single console over a dual console because I like to move around. I like to be able to land a fish in the area that second console typically would be, but certainly a lot of people run dual consoles. The dual console gives your partner a lot more protection. It gives you additional storage. But as a tournament fisherman, that other console gets in the way. I like my co-angler or my partners to be able to put their tackle bag on the bottom. So I prefer a single console. I run a motor guide and a Mercury. I run 2 Lowrance HDS touchscreens. We're going to show you pictures of all of this equipment. Those touchscreens are linked and networked. I have structure scan both on my trolling motor and my transom. I run a 0.1 GPS. I'm going to talk about why I run a 0.1 GPS, a GPS puck. The GPS puck downloads the satellite data 4 to 10 times faster than the internal GPS that comes with the Lowrance HDSs, so the GPS puck is quicker. I do run a structure scan transducer on my trolling motor, 2 dual power poles, always run a hydraulic jack plate to be able to raise the motor and lower the motor, run 2 Navionics Plus cards in my units. Now the Lowrance does allow you to run 1 chip off of 2 units, but when you put those units in standby, then it won't read the card if it's in the unit that's on standby. And so I run 2 Navionics cards. a sonic hub, hot foot, dual trim, etc. We're going to go into all the equipment. My boat comes from me from Ranger without a motor or a trolling motor. Now, let me tell you this. Retail customers don't have that option. Only pro staff can get a boat unrigged. And the reason why I do that is I like to rig my own boat because I want my things in specific places, and I want to be able to rig them for two reasons. One, I want to know what is where in case something breaks, because we all know what boat stands for. Break out another $1,000. And so things do break. I don't care if it's new, I don't care if it's old, things break. And so I want to be able to know how things are rigged in case something breaks while I'm on the water. I do have Ranger run all the wires for the Lowrance so that those wires are already in the boat. It's easier to run them when the boat comes from the factory. Certainly we could talk about running them for guys that are trying to upgrade their electronics and that sort of thing. And I work through Anglers Marine, which in my opinion, hands down is the best rigging marine dealership in California, if not the West. They're one of the largest Ranger and tracker dealers in the country. And I work with the riggers when they rig my boat. I'm there every step of the way, making sure things get. And so the process starts with actually picking the colors. I do run a wrap boat. I typically run the same colors bolts every year, which is some kind of gray color, white, because I figure most guys have a black, gray, or white truck. This is what the boat looks like when it arrives to Anglers Marine. It's wrapped. You see no motor. You see no trolling motor. And we break that thing open and we start to rig the boat. So again, there's the hydraulic jack plate, no mercury. That's how my boat arrives to Anglers Marine. And that's what the finished product looks like. Mercury Pro XS, hydraulic jack plate, dual power poles, and we'll dive into that. So let's talk about the equipment. Anyone who fishes must have a spare trolling motor, and I don't care what brand you run, Minn Kota, Motor Guide, they break. I run a spare trolling motor, and I rig both my trolling motors the same way. So if I have to replace one, and mind you, I haven't had to replace a trolling motor in probably about 3 or 4 years, but I do rig my trolling motors. And what you'll see, and hopefully you all can see this pointer, on the top of the trolling motor is the speaker box, and at the bottom is the transducer. You see both of those are with a C-clamp. You see a cool hub on the top of my Motor Guide foot pedal. There's the two HDS 12s, pinpoint one, the trolling motor. You see a lot of tape around that trolling motor. These in the center of the trolling motor is a comfort troll, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well. I run 431 Optima Blue Tops. I've also used Walmart batteries for my trolling motor. The big Mercuries require a Group 31 or bigger motor because that Mercury needs a lot of power to start. Again, run 2 Navionics Plus cards. This is just some of the equipment. This is starting to look at the rigging now. Again, 2 power pole blades. And right here is where you get into what we call the custom rigging. And so what you see on this shot in the bottom left are 2 wireless power pole switches, foot switches. You see the, oh wow, there we go. You see the bracket for, hold on one second. Okay, there we go. You see the bracket for the Lowrance 12. The key to this picture right here is a clean deck. I don't like anything on the carpet. So everything's out of the way. It's nicely rigged. And we're going to go into a little deeper of what it looked like to get it that way. You see the trolling motor. Another thing that's important, notice how these wires for the trolling motor go down through the runway right there. And the purpose of that is if I've got to replace that trolling motor, I don't want to have to open up this dash. I can just pull that right out and swap out a trolling motor. And yes, I have had to swap out a trolling motor. It doesn't matter what brand you run, they break. And again, we're going to show a more detailed picture of the rigging a little later. So let's look at the rigging. So I also replaced the trolling motor cord with the red one trolling motor cord. The reason for that is those trolling motor cords break. They're typically a high grade cord, but this red one is actually a metal cord. I've never had one of these red ones break. And there's nothing worse than being out on the water and have a trolling motor cord break. And so I do replace the trolling motor cord with a red one. You see the cool hub, which is, the cool foot, which is on the trolling motor foot, bounce buster for rough water, and the GPS puck. And you notice where the GPS puck is located, which is on the front deck, as close to where I would fish. And here's why we do that. When I'm putting a GPS marker while I'm driving, I want to put that GPS mark where I'm going to fish. And so no matter where I'm driving, because that GPS puck is close to the front where I'm going to actually fish, that'll put that GPS mark up front so that I know I'm close to it when I stop to actually fish. So if you're fishing a rock pile or a brush pile, you want to be accurate as possible. And so this 0.1 GPS puck is going to give you 4 to 10 times the speed compared to the internal GPS. Now, that doesn't say that the internal GPS is not good. It is, but the external 0.1 is quicker. And it allows me to put GPS marks exactly where I'm going to get up and fish, right? If you're driving a boat and you pop in a GPS mark and you don't have a puck in a different location, that GPS mark is actually going to go where you're sitting. So you get up to the front deck to fish, and you could be as far as 20 feet away from where your GPS location actually was. Whereas I'm increasing my chances by having an external puck up front of actually putting that GPS mark where I'm going to actually fish. This is a closer look at the trolling motor. A couple things you see here, starting with the prop. You see an eliminator, which eliminates exhaust and noise from the prop. And again, all the pieces I'm going to be showing you today, a lot of them are aftermarket pieces, right? That's why it's a custom rig. Most of these pieces you can get from your local marine dealer. If you can't, most of them are on Tackle Warehouse. Absolutely every one thing that I'm talking about today you can get from Anglers Marine, but you probably can get from your local boat dealership as well. Starting with the eliminator, which is swapping out the stock prop for the motor guide. They make these from Minn Kotas, and this makes the prop exhaust better and decreases the noise. So it makes the motor run more efficient. You basically have the motor guide strap, which again, mainly for rough water. Then you have the equalizer. Now, for those of you who run Minn Kotas, you know that the Minn Kota already has a piston in it that allows the ease of lifting and deploying. For those of us who run motor guides, the equalizer is the solution to making the motor lighter to deploy and lift back up. And so these are pistons, and there's a piston on both sides, whereas the Minn Kota just has one in the middle. And then you see the Troll Perfect, which is this device here at the center of the trolling motor, and this keeps both pieces tight and eliminates the wiggle that sometimes accompany a trolling motor. And they make all of these pieces, they make them for both Minn Kota and motor guide. Again, custom pieces to increase the efficiency, take wear and tear off of your back in terms of lifting and deploying the trolling motor. For those of us who spend a lot of days on the water, these little things make a huge difference. And again, I'm going to take your questions at the end. I'm just kind of going through this stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the rigging again at the on the deck. This is what it looks like to open. Again, I have Ranger run the backbone. So this is the NEMA 2000, or what's commonly known as the backbone. This is what allows the fish finders to speak to one another, and it has these T's to add additional accessories. So the GPS puck is plugged into this NEMA 2000, which allows both the fish finder at the trolling motor and the fish finder at the steering wheel to communicate and share GPS. Now, you also can share GPS waypoints via the Ethernet cord. So I'm running off of an Ethernet cord from each unit, as well as a NEMA 2000. Again, you see the, oh, I lost my mouse. Where did my mouse? There we go. You see the GPS puck right there, as close to where I'm going to be fishing. So when I put a GPS waypoint into my fish finder, I know that waypoint is going to be at the location of the GPS puck. This is the hydro wave that runs the speaker. Let me go back real quick. That's the hydro wave that runs the speaker that you see right here. So this is the hydro wave speaker on the top of the trolling motor. This is the HDI transducer at the bottom of the trolling motor, and the HDI transducer gives me structure scan on the trolling motor. Doesn't give me side scan. Now, there are two transducers that you can use for the Lowrance. One is a spot scan that gives you more a circular view, and the HDI transducer, which only gives you down scan and regular fish finder. I opt to run down scan and a regular fish finder view versus a spot scan or side scan at the trolling motor. At the console or the steering wheel, I run both down scan and side scan. This is again how that the rigging looks. This is the area that the hydro wave goes. That's the GPS puck again. You can look at the stock cover for the Ranger, and there's a custom backing, which is, you know, about 1/8 of an inch piece of high grade plastic, aircraft plastic behind it. And the reason for that backing is that's how we beef it up to hold the unit. Again, this is the console. In the console, you see dual trim, you see the Ethernet cord, you see the backbone, and this is what it looks like to run the wires. They're real neat in there. There's the T's that allows you to tap into the NEMA 2000. Hot foot is a must for safety, allowing me to keep both hands on the wheel when I'm driving the boat in rough water or driving the boat, period. Jack plate indicator right there. This is another look at the console. This is a custom bracket. Again, this stock Ranger cover plate has a backing underneath it. Right there, you can see that high grade grade plastic that allows you to beef it up. Again, you got a shot at the trolling motor. There's those two wireless foot switches. There's the bracket, similar to this bracket, that's on that beefed up cover, and the trolling motor there. Here's a head view of my boat, and you can see this bend in the bracket. That's a custom bend that allows the fish finder to fit between the trolling motor, between the steering wheel and the console. You got the Ethernet cord there. You got the NEMA 2000 cord there. You got your structure scan cord there, and then your two regular cords, your dual trim and jack plate, and then your hot foot. This is what it looks like with the fish finder on. Real clean rigging, no wires. And the benefit of this is, as I'm driving, I've got my fish finder in plain view of whatever I'm driving. And so this is a clean rig. Another thing that we're able to do is, this is a shot of my HDS 12 touchscreen hooked up to my iPad wirelessly and connected to my phone, all via Wi-Fi. Another thing that you'll notice in this picture is these two switches right here, just below the fish finder. There's one on the right and one on the left. Those are also two wireless power pole switches, similar to the two foot switches you see at the top of the screen. So I've got 4 wireless switches that run my power poles. And again, my trolling motor, real clean, no wires. All the wires are hidden, no wires on the deck. This is a shot at as a structure scan transducer. That is on the bottom step of the hole in the back near the transom. Again, I mentioned that I run structure scan on my trolling motor. Well, this is what structure scan to be able to give you down scan, side scan, and this happens to be a 3D structure scan transducer that Lowrance just came out with. And again, clean rigging, that's going up through the hole and running into the fish finder at the console. So that's a 3D structure scan transducer, and this is the mount that comes with the transducer to mount it at the bottom of the hull on the outside of the boat. In order to get structure scan, you've got to be going like 0 to about 15 miles an hour. Above that, you start to lose bottom contact. This is another finished product. This is my team partner's Ranger Z521. You can see the custom rims there. It's a wrap boat, dual power poles, and pretty much the fish. This is a side view of what the fish finder looks like and the steering wheel. And so let's dive into some questions. Any questions out there so far? The way you are able to ask questions is to go into the chat function on Zoom, and you're able to type in your questions if you all have some questions. So I'm just waiting a little while to see if anyone has any questions. If you all want some more specifics, you're able to go to westernbass.com and look in, I believe it is the February 2015 edition. There is an article on custom rig bass boats where we talk about a lot of the same stuff, but give you detail. How do you network your fish finders together? Great question, Adam. My fish finders are networked together 2 different ways. And let me go, oops. Let me go to a slide where I can show you that. So on this picture in the bottom left corner, you see this cord with a yellow, that's got a yellow piece on it. That's an Ethernet cord. And to the right of that, you see a black cord, which is hooked up via the NEMA 2000. And so in this picture right here, you should be able to see the NEMA 2000. And so my Lowrance HDS 12s are networked 2 different ways. They're networked via the NEMA 2000, which are these black backbone right here. And you can go on Lowrance.com or tacklewarehouse.com or contact your local dealer. It's called a NEMA 2000. So there's a NEMA 2000 mail that goes into your unit. And so they're networked that way, and then they're also networked using an Ethernet cord that runs from one unit to the other. So my units are actually networked 2 different ways. They speak to each other via the Ethernet cord that runs from both units or one unit to the other, and they're networked via the NEMA 2000. And the NEMA 2000 can be purchased as a kit that comes with these little T's that you see right here, and you can see that the GPS plug, this is actually the cable going from the GPS plug into the NEMA 2000 so that both units can read the GPS plug off the NEMA 2000, and then the unit plugs into the NEMA 2000 as well. So great question, Adam. Neil, I just purchased an HDS Gen 2 unit, and a lot of installation videos show how to glass in the transducer into the bilge. This is the smaller one, not the SI one. Don't you lose some clarity having... That is a great question, and the simple answer is yes, but it is so small that those of us who fish in shallow water tend to like to glass our transducer in to the hole. My transducer, and when I say transducer, I'm talking about my regular fish finder transducer, is glassed into the hole, because I don't like to have it on the outside of the hole, because I'm prone at hitting a tree or tule, and forcing the puck up, and then I don't have fish finder at all. So the bottom contact that you lose, or the clarity that you lose by glassing in your transducer for your console unit, is so small that for me it's worth the risk to do it, because I'd rather always have a fish finder than to be in shallow water and risk hitting that transducer and knocking it off, breaking it. Or more than likely, what we tend to do for those of us who fish shallow water is you knock that transducer up, and you got to wait to get out of to take your boat out of the water to force it back in the right location. And so the only way that I would recommend not glassing your transducer in is if you fish open water and deep water all the time. But if you fish shallow water, you're going to either break that transducer on the outside, or you're going to knock it up when you hit something shallow that's going to cause you not to have a fish finder. Logan, my question is that in my boat, I run an older Lowrance 113. I know what that is. I have one of that. And is it possible still to put a Navionics chip in these? Absolutely, Logan, it is. The chip you want is a Navionics Plus chip, or if you can find an older gold, which we no longer make. Right now, Navionics is doing the Platinum, the Navionics Plus, or the update card. If you have an older card, you can buy an update card, which will cost you $99, and you can put the older card and the update card into Navionics.com, and you can download the freshest data or the most updated data onto that update card. And so those are your three options: is either a Navionics Plus card, an older Navionics card, and then traded. Not traded, it's not actually trading in, it's actually buying an update card. If you buy an update card for $99, you can use it if you have an older card or a competitor card. You can go to Navionics.com and find out more about that. But to answer your question, yes, a Navionics card. The Platinum will not. You need either an older card, like a gold card, which we no longer making. The Navionics Plus is replacing that. Or you need an update card, Logan. So hopefully that answers your question. Have you used a GPS trolling motor for a bass boat? Absolutely not. You don't see those a lot in a bass boat, because they're not as maneuverable as a traditional trolling motor. Those tend to be what you see for guys fishing redfish, guys fishing walleye, trout. They don't maneuver very well in shallow water like a traditional trolling motor. And so you typically don't see those on a bass boat, although I have seen a couple. Logan asks, will this update add the contour lines? If you get an update card, it has the same data, updated data as an Navionics Plus card. So absolutely, it will show the updated contour lines, and it should work in your 113. If you go, Logan, if you go to Navionics.com, there's a compatibility tab, and you can click on the tab, compatibility tab, and it'll actually tell you what card will work in your unit. So you can go to Navionics.com and look at the compatibility tab to see what chart will work in that 113. In addition to that, all the charts or maps that are on the Navionics charts, you can view them for free at Navionics.com on the web app. So you can actually look at all the maps on Navionics.com, and you can also download a Navionics app for your iPhone. Logan, I'd highly recommend that. Most people have smartphones. You can go into your app store and download the Navionics app. It'll cost you $10 for the same mapping data that you'll find on our charts. Neil, I have an older Ranger boat. Do you have any recommendations on what wax to use? Yes, Ranger actually makes a wax, or should I say they sell a wax. I'm sure somebody makes it for them. If you go to rangerboats.com, actually we go on rangerwear.com, you can see that wax. I don't know the name of it offhand. They typically send it with us when we order a boat. But Neil, if you go to rangerboats.com, actually, let me repeat that. If you go to rangerwear, rangerwear.com. You can go on that site and see the wax that Ranger recommends. I use it. I typically have my boats detailed. My detailer always uses the Ranger wax that comes with the boat, and you can find that wax, Neil, at www.rangerwear.com. The one thing with the older bolts is sometimes the gel coat starts to get real thin and dull, and so that may be something you want to look into. And any detailer worth their weight in gold will know what you should be using, Neil, to bring out that shine in that older Ranger boat. And I've seen some immaculate Ranger boats that have had a mighty shine on them, and so I do know it is possible. Let me scroll up and see if I make sure I didn't miss any questions. Any other questions that folks have out there? Okay, Lyndon, I have the HDS 12 Touch and the HDS 9 Touch with structure can, and they are linked. I have the older model GPS antenna, I believe it is the 2000. Do you recommend upgrading to a 0.1? That is a great question and a tough question. The 0.1 is only going to cost about $200. Do I think it's worthwhile? Absolutely. The 0.1 is quicker. I believe the 2000 updates 4 times faster than the internal GPS in the 12. The 0.1, I believe, is 10 times faster. And the 0.1 has a directional arrow. The 2000 doesn't have a directional arrow. And so the 0.1 has an internal directional arrow that helps you sink in on your direction even more closely than the 2000. So that ultimately, Lyndon, is a question you've got to decide, is whether that $200 is important to you, whether you have it to spend. I'm sure you could sell that 2000 puck on eBay all day or to one of your buddies, but the 0.1 is quicker, and it has an internal direction arrow that makes you more accurate, tells you what direction the puck is going in. And so I certainly think it is leaps and bounds above the internal GPS and the 2000. Something to think about. That's something you can Google as well. Joe, what can you do if you're getting interference between your ACS unit and the Minn Kota trolling motor? All electronics are running on a standalone battery. Well, that usually is one of two things, Joe. That is either a rigging issue or that is an isolation issue. I can honestly say I've never had that problem. I don't run a Minn Kota, I run a Motor Guide, but just from the sounds of it, Joe, it sounds to me like it's a rigging issue, like maybe the way you ran your wires, it may be coming into interference with something, or you may need to actually isolate the battery. Now, I never recommend that people rig their fish finder on the same battery of their trolling motor. That is a disaster waiting to happen. I recommend that you run your electronics off of the battery that you're using to run your motor, because when the motor is running, the alternator will charge the battery. To run your units off of the same battery that your trolling motor is running, which we all know that the trolling motor batteries run down, and the starter battery typically doesn't, because of that alternator in that engine is asking to have the power sucked out of your trolling motor batteries because of your fish finder. And so, Joe, I'm not exactly sure why you rigged it that way, but I would highly recommend a solution may be rigging or running the wires or linking the batteries, connecting the fish finder cables to your starter battery. That's industry standard, strictly because you don't want to draw power from those trolling motor batteries if you can avoid it. Any other questions out there? Again, you all have been asking some great questions, and this webinar will be available on Navionics.com in about a week. If you want to go back and watch it, again, you can also watch. You can also read an article that I wrote on custom rig bass boats on westernbass.com on their magazine. Neil, you run the Wi-Fi off your Lowrance Touch to your iPhone. Is there any lag between the two? No, it's live. And not only is it live, Neil, I can control my electronics with my phone or my tablet. And so if you go into your app store on your phone or your tablet, you can download the Lowrance app. You have to have that Lowrance app, and I hate to tell you this, but it only works on the HDS 3s. So the HDS 3s, the 12s, 9s, 7s are the new generation 3s are the only ones that have the built-in Wi-Fi. Now there is a Wi-Fi module that you can purchase, I believe, for generation 2, but in order to run the units, you have to download the Lowrance app to your phone, and then you have to have a wireless Wi-Fi connection, which is built in on the Gen 3s. There's a Wi-Fi box that you can purchase for the Gen 2s. There is no lag, and I can actually control my fish finders with my iPad or my iPhone, or if you're an Android person, you can do that. Yes, well, Neil, if you plan on getting the Wi-Fi box, make sure it's compatible with the unit you have. It is absolutely sweet to be able to run my units off of my phone and to be able to see it. Make sure you got a case, because you don't want to drop your phone in the water. That'll be expensive. I got a waterproof case for my phone and my iPad, and it is absolutely sweet to be able to do that. The other benefit of the phones, I can tell you that the technology on these phones are amazing, and I see one day that everything we do with our fish finders, we're going to be able to do with our phones. And that begins with the Navionics app. I can do all the research, put waypoints, look up lakes by downloading the Navionics app on my phone or my tablet. And now I no longer have to go get in my boat to start researching lakes. I also haven't looked at a paper map in about 10 years because of the technology on the Navionics web app on my phone. And so you talk about sweet, that is actually very sweet. I can be in a meeting at work looking at my Navionics app thinking about fishing Lake Havasu or the next lake that I have coming up. Any other questions out there? You all have been asking some great questions. Appreciate, again, you all being on this webinar. It'll be available in about a week on Navionics.com. Any other questions? Ken, any thoughts about side scan in addition to down scan on the trolling motor? You know, there's a lot of different schools of thoughts out there. I'm both a shallow water fisherman and a deep water fisherman. For fishing deep, the side scan does absolutely nothing on the trolling motor. And that's primarily why I have down scan. When I'm fishing shallow, for me, it's not necessarily a need to have side scan because I'm going to be able to see the targets that I'm fishing. But that there are systems out there like the spot scan or, you know, trolling. You can have a side scan transducer on the trolling motor. I personally just don't see a need for that for shallow water, and it's absolutely doesn't help you in deep water because, again, it's a side scan, it's not a down scan. So for me, I prefer down scan because if I'm using the fish finder on my trolling motor, I'm normally fishing deeper than 10 or 20 feet. I mean, I'm coming to you from the West Coast, so shoot, in the wintertime, or what we call winter, we catch fish out of 50 and 60 feet of water drop shotting, and having side scan on my trolling motor does absolutely nothing for marking fish down in 40 or 50 feet. I need to have a down scan. And again, as I fish shallow, because I love to flip and punch, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a punching webinar in a couple of weeks. I'm known for punching. Having side scan on my trolling motor when I'm in a grass bed that goes 100 feet does absolutely nothing in terms of being able to see fish because the side scan is not going to see through that grass. But There are some options out there like spot scan and putting a structure scan transducer that does side scan and down scan on your trolling motor. I just haven't seen a need to do that. Great question, Ken. Any other questions out there? Well, guys, if there are no other questions, again, I appreciate you all attending the webinar tonight. You all have a good evening. There are a lot of other great webinars coming up. Please visit Navionics.com, click on webinars, and there's a lot of other great webinars coming up. Enjoy the rest of your night. If you have questions, give my email address. Let me put that up real quick. Again, my email address, Shabazz at Navionics.com. Let me put that up real quick. There's my email address in case you all have questions. Again, thank you all pretty much. Thank you all very much. Good fishing out there. Be safe, and we'll see you all at the next webinar. Take care.